The last time we did a build like this was when I was making fun of an author from motherboard.vice.com who said it was painful, literally. He said he literally bled for his computer, and that's, by the way, I think a direct quote. We're very close to it, and that it was very difficult to build a computer. So we did a speed build in response to basically say, look, this is how quick, easy, and literally painless it is, although I did stab myself. And that video did pretty well. So today we're doing another speed build. It won't be as popular because I'm not insulting anyone, but this build we filmed under the guise of, I basically said it was for a friend as a mining and production machine, and it actually is for Andrew, the man behind the camera and the editing, but he didn't know that until the end. So this build is for him, and it's going to be used for 3D animation, modeling, Blender, stuff like that. Unreal Engine 4, so it has actual real use cases. We've got a 1070 Ti that's going to go in it. We already filmed the build, and now we're refilming the intro. And Ryzen 7 1700 CPU, which are both very good for these production tasks, and we'll get kind of a ground floor established for later upgrades. So that's the plan. It's still basically a speed build though, so you get 2 in 1. It's one of those gift type build videos, and also see how fast it goes together. I'm gonna have to clean up a few things later though. So without further ado, here's the build. Actually, I lied. One more further ado. Before that, this video is brought to you by Thermal Grizzly, makers of the Conductonaut liquid metal that we recently used to drop 20 degrees off of our coffee lake temperatures. Thermal Grizzly also makes traditional thermal compounds for use on top of the IHS, like Cryonaut and Hydronaut pastes. Learn more at the link below. To give you an idea of what we're upgrading Andrew from, it's an old Lenovo laptop with a 650M in it, and that's been what's being used for rendering, so we'll have to do a comparison of how long it takes to render something on that versus this. I think that's gone up like a day at a time for some renders, or more. So that's where we're coming from. We previously tore this laptop apart for new thermal paste and thermal pads, and we'll leave that linked in the description below if you want to see that, because it improved performance significantly. But now we're going to improve it a few steps more by getting off of a 650M and a several generation old i7. So let's get started. For the components, we've got an R7 1700 CPU, which is going to be useful for production tasks. We also have an AX370 Gaming 5 motherboard that we've had from Gigabyte for a while now. Repurposing that, we have an RM850X power supply from Corsair. Corsair also sent 32 gigabytes of memory and an MP500 Force SSD. So we are going to start with the motherboard, and we'll throw a timer up on the screen as soon as this box begins to open. And then all cuts from here on out will have an updated timer. So we're not going to cut the timer as we go, but we'll still cut the video down. Oh yeah, I'm gonna get on the anti-static wrist strap. This doesn't, so the adornment of the anti-static wrist strap does not count against time. This is a well-respected rule in speed building. Everyone knows this rule, of course. Okay, so the timer will begin in 3, 2, okay. Backplate's come off. The backplate has come off. That's a good start. Need to open the power supply. You know, Mr. Bitwit Kyle just did one of these, and our speed build when we did it was pretty fun. I really liked the way he did his most recent one, which was basically him versus the intern, who had never built a system before, as I understand it, and Kyle was blindfolded. So Kyle, if you're watching, that was brilliant. Well done. Okay. Sack of cables, power supply. Let's get the CPU open. Okay. There's our Ryzen CPU. Oh, that still had the stock cooler in it. That was the sound of 2 pounds of inefficiency hitting the floor. We are using a H115i cooler for this because I had one around, and they are easy to install, quite frankly, so it'll make this even faster. All right, Ryzen goes in. Oh, I'm gonna need thermal paste, and I'm gonna need case screws. I forgot both of those. So the mat I'm building on, if you haven't heard us talk about it, it is our first real, like, from scratch product design. It's an anti-static mod mat, and this has with it a couple of diagrams on it for electrical wiring, which we've used for mods and things like that. The stick of memory has thermal paste on it. Maybe I can scrape that off and use it for the CPU. It's also got a couple of other, like a ruler and a screw sorting tray for GPU teardown and stuff like that. Okay, so we've got that part done. I think I haven't worked with this case since end of year 2015. And let's see if it comes apart the way I remember. Yes. This was one of my favorite cases when we got it in. It is an inverted layout 600C. And so the motherboard's going to go in, video card will be up here, CPU cooler will be probably bottom mounted, I think. And I need screws. These are technically all motherboard screws, but there's different ones. Okay. So this is going to go in like that. That's cool. And then this is the easy part. Mind you, we're losing some time here just by nature of filming stuff as we go. Got to move the lights around and stuff like that. So someone's going to comment and be like, you forgot the I/O shield. I actually didn't. So when we did that motherboard response video, some people commented that and they weren't really that serious, to be fair. But I actually hate I/O shields and make it a personal vendetta to never use them. So we haven't forgotten it. That said, the included I/O shields are pretty smart. I like that manufacturers have done that, and I think it makes a lot of sense. You do pay a premium for it right now, which is unfortunate, but that'll stop eventually. So I would like this to be bottom mounted. Damn, I'm gonna have to flip those fans around if I do that. And if we do bottom mounted, okay, that'll work. That's really, we do bottom mounted over here. This will give us some airflow over the VRMs. That's why I want bottom mounted right here. So I'm gonna have to flip these to intake. That's very annoying. So I'm doing a pit stop, pulling in team member Andrew from behind the camera. Before shooting this, we put the fans on because I was trying to speed things up, but I forgot because we're doing this bottom mounted, we're gonna want the fans mounted. I want them as pull, not as push. All right, so push. It's not the best way to mount it, but I think that's the way I'm gonna do it. This is gonna suck. Oh, it's the case. I'm colliding with the case component. God damn it. Okay, why isn't it gonna work this time? Motherfucker. God. Oh, the tank is wider. I don't know about that. It's a pretty serious bend. I might have to give up on Corsair's cooler. Stop the clock! Wait! Okay, so we've gone back to this setup. If we roll back the timer, there was a clearance issue with the liquid cooler. So this case is old enough where 280mm coolers don't play too nice with bottom mounting. The liquid tank was getting in the way of the I/O, the output panel, basically, the I/O panel was being blocked by the radiator and a big piece of metal that sticks out of it. So we've abandoned that, and we could go with 240 liquid, But at that point, really might as well just use air. So we're just going to use air. This is going to be easier to install. I chose liquid because last time it was the fastest possible thing to install. Last time I think we also did an Intel system and it was in a different case. So we're going to go with air for this. And I need to remount the SSD anyway. So yeah, we're just going to rewind to before trying the liquid cooler and finding out that there was no way it was going to work in the exact position I wanted it to. So 3, 2, 1, go. Gonna resume the clock now. Now it will be much more interesting than 20 minutes of trying to get a couple screws into a cooler. It really did not want to fit in this bottom position at all. Pretty sure that's the orientation. Please be correct. Yes. Okay, good. We're in business. Okay. That's a lot better. Get some thermal grizzly cryonaut on there, bit overkill. This is a 12 point something watt per meter Kelvin paste. Someone's going to complain about thermal compound application. And to you, I would say, you're wrong. It's irrelevant. What you think matters does not actually matter. Okay. Just, you know, strictly based on hundreds of hours of testing. This screwdriver is tiny. You know, side benefit of screwing these in simultaneously is that we're not going to have better distribution of thermal compound. It's going to spread basically perfectly evenly. Okay, that's way better than where we were with the liquid cooler. And I have a whole crate full of Noctua fans that we're working on testing, so we can even put some more in here to get some front intake, but we'll worry about that later. Kind of got enough to worry about as is. So this is going to go up there, and I'll just take this opportunity to point out the comments that are always like, Steve, why are you so abusive to the components? Why aren't you more gentle? Why do you try to hurt them by spinning them in a circle on the table? Yeah, I don't know why people think that these components are so fragile, but they can really take a serious beating. Like spinning them around on the table, as I do with motherboards. Seriously, it's not going to hurt the components. Even the work we do with video cards, we haven't killed one, so I just like to point out to everyone that these are a lot stronger than people in the comments seem to think. Okay, enough screws are in. Let's do power supply. I typically try to do power supply next, but let's do video card because I already picked it up. Nope, that's it. Okay, cool. So the cool thing about this case, it's a bit old now, but because of the orientation, the video card is going to get some help from the power supply, which will pull air up and out while the video card is using its open face design to move the air around. So that'll help us out there. Need some cables. So this is the RM850X that Corsair sent over. Their liquid cooler is not going to make it in, but power supply is plenty good, and we'll do exactly what we need. I don't think I need SATA right now. We don't have any SATA drives in there. That's kind of the benefit of M.2. Okay, so that's going to come off. This 600C has one of those power supply mounting plates that NZXT debuted a couple of years ago. There's a lot of dust up there. This case has been in the attic since we reviewed it a couple of years ago, along with the H500P that recently tried to kill us. It became possessed. Vega Frontier Edition actually possessed it. And when we attempted to get rid of the case, Vega Frontier Edition brought it back. If you don't know what I'm talking about, Watch our disappointment build. Indie film of the year, critics say. Critics say many people like it. I remember this. I remember criticizing this. And they actually said it was a really good point, and that they being Corsair, were going to consider the changes for the future. Can't really route the cables because the hard drive cages are in the way. So you have to basically take a hard drive cage out, sacrifice use to one, and that'll give you the best, cleanest management. Now you can do it without doing that, but you do get much less clean cables. 8-pin, oh, that's right, this kind of sucks now that I think about it. So this, yeah, motherboard's inverted, so 8-pin's actually coming in down here instead. Forgot about that. Gigabyte, why? The clip is facing down and these cables have capacitors in the end of the cables, so they're hard to contort that way. Okay. Cool, that's done. This, I wanted to cut out here too, originally. Crush the cable. I wanted to cut out right there, which they also said was an interesting idea, and we're going to be considering if there's ever a Gen 2 of this case, because then you could route this way cleaner up straight out of the power supply shroud. You know, this can come in cleaner too, actually. Now we're just wasting time on visuals, but we already got the whole build done, so that's really all there is left. Let's just route this one over here. Okay, this build is something that we were doing for a friend recently, and actually the build is for Andrew. That one is it's yours.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah. So post-build, we ran a couple of quick benchmarks on the completed desktop system versus the laptop that Andrew was using. And on the laptop with a GN logo intro screen render, we were seeing about over 6 minutes on the CPU, which is an i7 of some old generation, and about 11 minutes or over on the GPU, the GTX 650M or GT 650M. For the new system, we're seeing about a minute for the GPU for a 1070 Ti single card, and that will improve once we get a 960 in there just for some backup. And we saw about a minute and a half for Ryzen stock for the 1700. And overclocking we're working on. We're having some issues with the Gigabyte Gaming 5 motherboard where it's increasing the voltage to 1.55 volts, allegedly software reported, which is obviously very high. So we're waiting to fix those issues, but for now these are the numbers we have stock, and once we fix them with an overclock, that should see similar improvements to what we saw in our CPU reviews for the R7 1700 stock versus overclocked, which tends to be a good couple percent, nearing double digits. So that's our quick inverted PC build. It's this case I liked a lot when it came out, and I hope Corsair does some kind of follow-up to it, because the layout is really interesting. With a couple fans mounted in the front, we'll do some Noctuas or something. It really streamlines the airflow straight through the CPU cooler, and the cooler is really close to the front of the case, so you're not losing much pressure there on the transit to the cooler. And then the other one is straight in line with the top of the video card, so open face cards can breathe. And the power supply, this is the interesting part, and this is all stuff I talked about like 2 years ago in the review. But the power supply, because the fan is on the bottom facing the video card, it helps pull that hot air out from the video card as it's being ejected. The video card, any open face design, is basically spewing air everywhere. So it's coming out kind of all different areas of the heatsink. And that means some of it will go out through the rear exhaust that's mounted behind the CPU cooler. Some of it will go through the power supply. Some will go through the big ventilated portion of the case right here. So all of those things mean that you're not dumping too much heat into one component like the power supply. Also, the power supply can definitely take it. It's not that much warmer. You're talking 40 degrees ambient versus, 30 or something like that. So you might have a 10C delta. But that is the quick speed build to start us off for the year. A couple things could be cleaned up, but for a speed build, pretty happy with it. So we have plenty of other coverage coming for the rest of the week, but quick note here, we will be at CES for all of next week, so make sure you're subscribed if you are not. That way you can catch all the news for the hardware industry over the next week as it comes out. You can go to store.gamersnexus.net/modmat to pick up a mod mat like this one. And of course, you can help on patreon.com/gamersnexus. Thank you for watching. I'll see you all next time.